This video is going to show you a solo flawless legend Presage during the first week of this season of the Witch. Obviously we have just been introduced to the new exotic playlist which they're going to build up on over time. As of now we have Presage, next week will be Vox Obscura, and the week after that will be Operation Seraph Shield. So I'm going to cover this playlist weekly, likely do a normal and a legend of each mission. Generally all 3 characters, but not every week. For example, this week, because it's the launch of the new season, I'm probably not going to do 3 flawless Presage missions this week. But it's going to be back in rotation, isn't it? And there'll be different builds that I do this mission with, etc. This build here that you saw me use was a non-fancy setup. An old-fashioned setup that we've been using for quite some time. Geomag Stabilizers, Chaos Reach, Arc Warlock. The reason being is because I couldn't really be too creative because I don't have a lot of the new exotic armor pieces, as I missed the Lost Sector week. The Lost Sector day the other day. It was on arm rotation. The day I'm at work, couldn't get on. So I didn't have access to those, and I just wanted to show you an easy solo flawless clear on this mission. So I'm not going to talk too much about the route on where you go. You should really already know that. There's a timer on the mission as opposed to normal. So normal there's no timer. For legend there's a 30-minute timer, which is the equivalent of the old master Presage, because if you don't know, the old Presage had a normal difficulty and a master. It was called master difficulty, whereas in this playlist it's referred to as legend. But really there's not much differences between the two. In actual fact, the master version of this mission is more difficult than the mission than the legend difficulty. Reason for that is simply because of time. So you're on a 30-minute timer. The old timer used to be 25 minutes. And believe me, the 25 minutes, some runs you actually really needed 25 minutes. There's a couple of Presage solo flawlesses I'd done where I was literally 30 seconds left to beating the mission, right? Whereas now that we've got an extra 5 minutes to play with is so long. You seem to forget 5 minutes is such a long amount of time in a mission like this. If you've got 5 extra minutes in an exotic mission like this, that's bags of time. It means that you can play more reserved at the boss fight and stuff, which you may need to depending on your setup. There's many different setups that you can do. There's a Lament setup, there's the Banner of War setup, there's loads of different new things. There's the Glaive with Banner of War as well. All sorts of different setups that you can do with this. But yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about the routing. You should already know that in advance. If you don't, I recommend you do a normal solo. Now, you get Cranial Spike IV, I believe, if you do Legend. Right, I'm still in the same position. I haven't got round to crafting DMT and all that stuff, but you don't need to solo flawless this mission to get the Cranial Spike 4. But I'll get back to that in a minute. Just want to say something extra about it. So with the fuse section, right, the trash compactor section, you will not lose solo flawless if you don't destroy all the fuses in time. So you've got a wave of Screebs that spawn, right, which I recommend a pulse grenade and a healing rift for with your arc soul to combat that. If you don't get all 3 fuses, if you get an unlucky spawn, because it is an RNG spawn, then go to the edge of the wall, not the switch section, right, the other side, and hug the wall. The trash compactor will not kill you, and you can quickly get the fuses again. You will lose around 40 to 50 seconds if that happens, so be aware of it. It's not ideal if that happens to you. So this is the first combat section of the mission. So I started it off really bad because I did not have a healing rift or a pulse grenade, which was actually quite bad. When doing this, I didn't account for me not having those abilities, but I just used them, didn't I, on the Scrapes, which I kind of do recommend you do as well. So it's fine. I end up just getting my abilities. So I end up playing a little bit more passive on this section as opposed to usual. The snipers are a bit of a problem in this, the raider snipers. If you saw the mods at the start, we have Void Threat on. Not only that, Raider Snipers are kind of buggy as it is anyways, so it was actually a little bit more difficult this section just because of the Raiders. We used a super there to take out one of the captains, I believe, in some of the ads, and we tried to get both snipers. We didn't. One's still alive, but that's where we're playing a bit more passive, letting all the other Scorn melee type enemies chase us. We can quickly kill them with Calus mini tool, right? Get the captain down, and we then got the final raider. I recommend a super in this room definitely, because it's just a little bit awkward with the two snipers at the back of the map. And the combat experience is that the Scorn captains will just keep putting up their void tethers. There are 3 elemental shields in this of captains, which there always have been, Void Arc Solar. As far as I'm aware, that's all the same. Somebody said the shields rotate daily or something, or weekly. I don't know, I haven't played the mission enough to know that, but this just seemed the same as what it was in Master. So you got your Arc Captain on the bottom, Solar Captain on the other side, and your Void Captain on the top, and Solar Scorn Captains at the boss. I found it was to be the same, so I'm kind of confused about somebody saying about rotating shields in this. I haven't seen that. It seems just the same, but you have got all shields to deal with, which there is no match game, but I do recommend having a source of element for each type, because the Scorn Captains do impressive damage to you. So if you get an elemental burst shield on them, if you break their match and shield, right, you stun them momentarily, and it just means that they don't melt you down as hard as they usually would. Okay, so in this room, this second combat room, there's Void Arc Solar Captains, which when you kill all 3, it spawns the 2 ogres. You need to be up top on the bridge when that happens. I've seen people head glitch them, the ogres. I don't recommend that you do that. That's actually not a playstyle for me, especially if you're doing Witherhoard strat, which this is ideal. It's the old strat that I used to do on the bridge, and you just keep Witherhoard multitasking both of the ogres, the Scorn ogres. Now you need to understand the next trigger and how you can manipulate it a little bit. What you want to do is not kill one ogre right away. You need to damage both ogres and get them below a third, both of them. I'm going to use a super on one to speed it up, because remember, you are timed in this. You can't mess around too much. Don't kill the ogre like the one of the Scorn ogres, right? But just weaken both. Now if you can get it, like I didn't do the best job of actually, what I was trying to do is kill both of them in one go, because when that happens there'll be a bunch of more enemies spawn, and plus Screeb spawn, by the way. They're the intermediate spawns that happen when you're standing up here while you're fighting the ogres. If you want the flawless, make sure that you remember the spawns of the Screebs, because they will definitely kill you if you don't remember that. Not that it matters to get, there is no point to get flawless, but you must understand the YouTube meta wants people to do a solo flawless. What's people's solo flawless like? The emblem you saw at the start was the flawless emblem for this. Not solo flawless, it was just, back then there was no solo flawless emblem for this. It was just flawless, which could be obtained. It's an emblem called the next chapter, the bull emblem. It could be obtained via team or solo. It was just the flawless emblem. You can't get that no longer, as far as I'm aware. So if that doesn't interest you, then just don't worry. This is just still showing you how to solo it, but you might not need to bother with that. Just get a team then and do it. But there are still people wanting to see what it's like. When you do get that extra spawn, remember the snipers, there's the raiders at top. They spawn the raiders with the Void Captain. You want to get up to the bridge as soon as possible and take them out with your LMG. I highly recommend a machine gun for this. I did do one brief run before this with a rocket launcher, and it didn't work out so well. The reason for that is because you don't really need a rocket launcher in this. It's ad dense. Your DPS should really revolve around Witherhoard anyways, and you're really more about surviving and stuff. So I don't recommend a rocket in this, to be honest with you, just because you're going to get more utility out of a machine gun, and it's overload machine gun this season, which means you can disrupt and overload all any enemy combatants in this, right? It means they do less damage, so you're in turn slightly tankier because of it. There's no SMG mods. I have got an SMG on. The reason why I've got an SMG on is because you've got to shoot fuses and stuff, and hand cannons and scouts are really terrible at shooting the fuses. And you find CQC, even though it's overcharged scout as a mod, I'm not running a scout in this. A hand cannon would be okay. A hand cannon would have been fine because obviously they've been buffed. But if I was going to run a hand cannon, I would really be interested to see a Sunshot run because there's solar shields at the boss. And I didn't want to run Sunshot because I wanted to show you the Witherhoard strat, which is overall probably the most universal best strategy for the Prestige solo on Legend difficulty at the very least. There are other setups like Lament's going to work in this, especially with strongholds on a Titan, Banner of War and stuff. Any Lament build on Void Nightstalker, if you want to really do this old school, if you want, that'll work as well. Just know that enhanced radar empath is on, so you get enhanced. Well, it says you get enhanced radar, but there is no radar. But the second barrel of the perk says, or the modifier, you take increased damage from melee. So if you haven't got the sword build on, don't run a sword. I don't. That's what I think. Either that or you run Lament. If not, Witherhoard LMG is the way to go. Probably Voidwalker is slightly better than Case Reach for this because you're going to get Devoured to proc. The neutral game is going to be slightly stronger for this, but the neutral game of Arc Warlock is not to be laughed at all either. I think Arc Warlock's got some things over Voidwalker in this. Case Ridge being one, slightly better super than Nova, but the Voidwalker with it having its Devour, you can play a little bit more aggressive with your machine gun, and your ag clear will be a bit more consistent a little bit. On Arc Warlock, you'll need to be a little bit better than if you're gonna go on Arc. You need to know what you're doing if you're on Arc, because there's a higher chance of death. There's one or two close calls on this, but I was tired, if I'm being honest, after working this. So I come on, done it. First go was with a rocket. Wasn't a good run. Reloaded it, put a machine gun on, second go, no problem. Easy enough. But I will say that if this was like, the 25-minute timer like it used to be, then I would have definitely struggled a lot more. But overall, like I say, because then, this was a 27-minute run. So if it was the 25-minute timer, I would have run out of time on this run. But it just goes to show that extra 5 minutes that they've give us is just making it a little bit more accessible for people. Because let's be honest, the Master Presage, not many people solo flawless that mission, if I'm being completely honest, because of that 25-minute timer. I've done it back to back on all three characters over and over with different builds. I even used a Monte Carlo build way back then with Peregrine Greaves. Even all the way back then I was using, Monte Carlo. I know it's what it's got now, which I still haven't got the catalyst, which you haven't saw me do anything with Monte Carlo because I haven't even got the damn catalyst to talk about it or even use it. Once I do get that stuff though, and all the unique new stuff that we've got this season, I'll start making videos on it. But in the meantime, I'll just run what I think's going to be easy for people. This little section, you're free to use a super, and you're timed, so you may as well. We're on 16 minutes 40 seconds now. I use a case reach on the double ogre. You may as well save it. And literally just another thing, I guess, what speeds up this little mission is the amplified buff. When we get our speed booster, that's speeding things up slightly as well, which is handy. But honestly, like, just to sort of compare this to the Master variant before it was sunset, you would be happy if you got to the boss at like 11-12 minutes. You were a happy man at that. I'm getting to the boss way quicker than that, just because, as I say, there's power creep in the game and it's a little different, the mission, in terms of how you play it now. Everything's a lot quicker than what it used to be, so the goalposts have changed. So not only are you stronger now, you've also got more time to run the damn mission. So this is a more of an accessible mission, but I still see people clambering to see for solo flawless for this mission, and they're still struggling with it. What does that tell you? It tells you that not everyone's built to run these solo flawlesses for these types of missions, and the consensus of, well, most people solo flawless these days isn't actually true when you look at the total number of players that play the game according to the runs that you see on YouTube and Twitch. It really isn't that many players who actually do solo flawless, even though it does feel like more people do solo flawless nowadays. They maybe do, yeah, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, might have only went up a couple of percent, not that much. So the boss fight itself. So you want to lead with a Witherhoard. I was gonna use machine gun, but I backed up just in case we weren't able to do the damage there and then. As this is your plan B if you don't want to melt him down too quickly and risk being one-shot by him. He can one-shot you. He one-shot me on the run previous to this, which I was so surprised when he comes up to you and does his attack. So if you don't have like resistance stack on your build and stuff, or, you know, you're not using lament strongholds and stuff, he has one-shot capability. He one-shot me the run before this. So I was so surprised. So that's why when I done DPS second time round on this run, it's like, well, I'm not chancing it. Not only that, it's saving ammo as well. I've got plenty of time. I got to the boss, what, 15 minutes? Just sub 15 minutes or something? That's so much time. So now, the intermediate phases, you get 3 solar shielded Scorn Captains, and it's always solar. So that's why we've got the mini tool on. Now it might be starting to make sense to you now. It's just that, like I say, sometimes these captains are they're CQC captains as well, because they've got that short range attack, but it melts up close. You'll see a couple of times when they actually really stagger me and do a lot of damage. But getting an elemental burst, right, when you match a shield, it's not the damage it does. It's just that initial stagger that they get stunned like a champion. Just pay attention to the AI. I know a lot of you like to watch speedrun content and people go fast and stuff, but you miss what the enemy does. You're not analysing the enemy's pattern enough. And you get to analyse enemy patterns a bit better when you're doing higher end content rather than speedrunning the normal edition. Which I was, since I sort of was thinking, oh, I'll get back into speedrun content. But I ran a normal Presage a few days ago. That was so easy compared to this. That mission was like a 1 out of 10, and this mission was like a 7.5 in terms of difficulty. It just shows you the difference. Legend is completely different to normal. I couldn't believe how different it was, to be honest. But I've already, as I say, I'm experienced at Presage, done loads of solo flawlesses on it, so this was not much of a problem to me. The attack that he does, the boss, where that line of fire comes at you, I dodged it, and that was the perfect time to do a super. Reason being is because he's locked, right? His chain ball thing is locked into the ground, so he's stuck there. So, you know, it's like you're playing Dark Souls, right, or whatever. You're dodging the enemy attack, and then you go in when the enemy's weak, and that's when it was the perfect time to do a super then. So now we're on to phase 2. Same thing, intermediate phase, but each phase can spawn Screebs as well. That I always believed to be the longer the captain was alive from when I used to do this. Sometimes if you melt the second captain that you encounter, not the first or second, the Screebs would spawn. There wouldn't be as many and stuff. I'm not entirely sure that with the Screeb phase. I think they just spawn anyways. But I remember back in the day on the old rotation, you used to be able to sometimes, if you melted the 3 captains quick enough, you wouldn't get that Screeb phase. Whether that's still true now, I don't know. I don't think so. I think you still get them. This is a chance to build up orbs as well. Now, loadouts is broken right now, so I can't take advantage of my build. So I'm actually kind of nerfed right now because you know that I probably would have ran my healthy finisher build, picked up my orbs, have armor charge, then swap to surges, right? Oh, I can't swap, it's equipment locked. My bad, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that on this mission. I do apologise, that's only on normal. So yeah, I couldn't have done that either. But really what happens with this is most of the damage is coming from Witherhoard. So phase 2 is a little bit more trickier than phase 1 because phase 1 we started fresh downstairs with no ads. But then as we damaged in those Scorn captains, Arc captains by the way, spawned in. They're now there. Now, there's 3 phases. If you don't kill any Scorn captains, you can end up with having like 4 captains down there, right? Which is a nightmare. So in the end, even though you timed and stuff, I mean, I'm on 10 minutes, so I'm sitting nice right now. I'm not really bothered at all. But even though you timed, it's worth your time to actually just kill the captains. Don't try and skip the captains and think you're saving time, because then you can't DPS. Now look at this little trick here, sitting on the pipe. That was the old strat that we used to do. So you got 3 exits to go down below, right? I don't use the back exit, the one at the back of the map. I only use the left and right exits. That exit's the best one because you can sit on that pipe and the boss sometimes will sit there for you so you can Witherhoard him and machine gun him or whatever. I'm going to use a quick super here, but to be honest with you, I end up backing out of it because he's going to start doing his attack. So I backed out of it a little sooner because even though I'd have got the boss down below half, I would have overcommitted to damage. So I learned that, yes, I know I'm going to... It looks like the bad play by cutting my super short, but it definitely wasn't. For like solar flawlesses and stuff, that's a prime example of don't overcommit to damage if you think you're going to die or there's a good chance of it. I was thinking to myself at the time, no, there's a chance he could knock me in the wall and my 22-minute run so far will be all for nothing. I've got not Sundering Glare, but Rapid Fire Ranger procced, so I've actually debuffed the boss, so I'm actually eager to get a Witherhoard on him. Right, so he's there. I've got Witherhoard. Unfortunately, it's on the ground, but I have got him debuffed. And what will happen now is he will push when you jump down, but then he'll de-aggro. He'll de-aggro and then re-aggro on that plate, on the pipe when I'm on there. But that's what I'm saying. It is worth your time, especially if you're on an Arc Warlock. It's easy enough to take them out with your Arc Soul, and whip out the machine gun if you need it. Because the role of the machine gun isn't really DPS. If I'm being honest, it is there to assist. It's more of an to a weapon to assist for damage, but more for priority targets and ag clear. It's for moments where you might die. Right, whip out the machine gun and you won't. Whereas if I was using my tool, yeah, it's good, but it's not going to hit as hard as the machine gun, and I could die as a result. There's a good example of that coming up on phase 3, and I'll point it out. You get mini phases as well up top of Scorn enemies when you're doing damage to the boss, so actually it's not worth you to overcommit to damage anyways, really, because when you come back up top, if you're weakened from DPS, you could get caught off guard by these Scorn enemies and they kill you. So remember, when you're coming back up top, right, there could be enemies. So now we're going to play Ring Around the Rosy with him, because I know he can one-shot, or he has. So I'm just going to use a bit of LMG with a hard. No, don't let him get too close. If he locks in place with his attack at any time that he does, then I will go for damage, but he isn't doing that. He's just chasing me. So that's fine. We'll go up here. He's locked into his attack now. I didn't realise he's doing a good with hard shot though. And we can get him down. This is basically how just to get... We're just edging him to his next phase. 6 minutes 40 in, so that's plenty of time for phase 3. Like, that's so much time. We're averaging what? 3 minutes per phase. Something like that. So, it's more than enough time. Witherhoard, that's what makes Witherhoard so good, is because you're doing damage over time and you're standing up top. And it's a safe. That's what makes Witherhoard the best weapon. It is definitely the best weapon for Presage. Lament's more of a skilled run, but I've done the old Lament run as well. Not this season, but obviously in the past. But that requires a little bit more planning. Your build needs to center around it a little bit more. You know, maybe pair that with a Roman Super Curse, which isn't Roman. So yeah, it's got the DPS, but it's not very good when you need to cancel it and retreat. Whereas if, like, you know, let's take an example of like Strand Titan, Really good to pair with Lament. It's got that Baron of War. You've also got a Roman Super, so you can use your Strand Super on him. You know, so pair it with a Roman Super if you're going to do the Lament run. Just on the near the final phase now. There's gonna be an extra wave of captains, which I never used to take out back in the day. I would just melt the boss with whatever I had. You could stay down there, especially if it's a Lament and stuff. But on this loadout, I can't overcommit to damage. There's a risk of death, like a good chance of it, if I just go down there and try and super him. Like a Case Reach won't do quite a third. It'll be close to it, but not quite. But remember, when you come out of your super, you lose damage resistance, and the captains will still be alive, so I need to account for that. So rather than just blowing our super right away, we're going to do a bit of damage first, come back up top, kill the captains, because if we don't kill the captains, we have no safe zone if we need to come back up top. You'll see they spawn up. Once you do a little bit of damage on phase 3, they'll spawn up. So we'll do it with our pulse grenade. He's stuck in place. You'll see the spawn. You'll get actually the spawn at the same time. Two our captains downstairs, 3 solar up top. So it's the same phase. Right, but this is a moment. This is one of those moments where, right, I must machine gun. And this is where I know it's a moment where if I get melee by all these adds because of the modifier, then I would definitely lose the flawless there. So that was an example of, right, machine gun right away. And then we can just... It's also a thing where if you have spammed more machine gun ammo than me, then remember, every ad that you kill, it's just a good chance of getting that heavy. Especially now with the ammo economy. I will speak briefly about the ammo economy, right? Because you get the idea with this run now. Primary Special Heavy's buffed. From what I've seen, well, from me, my opinion, when I'm using a Primary Special Heavy, I haven't found myself run out of heavy too much. But I haven't run any dungeons, especially Ghost of the Deep, to see how that works there. Right? I haven't done any long extended stuff because it's literally only been less than 1 week before this season came out. So it's not enough time to give you a definite answer on that. But I do know the double special heavy is nerfed for 100%. I've seen enough content on that, video wise, to see. Remember, once you kill boss, you haven't completed the run. I nearly died there, right? Luckily, ran away from them in time. But anyways, the flawless, there is no time for it, so it is there. If I did die, it wouldn't have mattered. But people still want to see Soul Flawless Legend Presage. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.